Welcome to the channel once more. This is Max Easy Lessons, and we are starting the series on breath, eyes, memory. There will be about 5 or 6 parts to this, and they will all be linked. So if you're new to the channel, please hit the red button to subscribe. Keep the bells on so that you can see everything that you need to know about Edwidge Danticat's breath, eyes, memory. So let's begin. This video is just one about the author and the plot. It's actually an introduction to it. And as I said, there will be more videos coming along on Breath, Eyes, Memory that will help you to understand all you need to know about the novel. Danticat was born on the 17th of January 1969 in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Now, this is very important. Her background is very important to understanding the entire novel. Now, at the time that she was born, Haiti was suffering under the brutality, corruption, and repressive regime which was initiated by Papa Doc Duvalier and perpetuated by his son, Baby Doc. Now, Danticat's parents had a rough time in Haiti, and so they had to escape the country. They migrated to New York. Edwidge and her younger brother were left behind in the care of an uncle. Now, right away, we know that having read the novel, that this is the foundation for all that happens in the novel. And if you have not read the novel as yet, guess what? Understanding the background of the author is going to help you to understand what really happened in the novel to the characters. It was only years later that her brother and sister were able to leave Haiti and to become reunited with their parents, who by then had moved on and had other children. So the family had gotten bigger then. The desperation, the relief, the pain, and the challenges of migration, these helped to form an integral part of Danticat's personal experiences over time, and so we see this in her narrative here. The plot of the story. Now, before you begin to get into themes nor anything else about the novel, you have to see where the plot is going. So listen carefully, please. We've just spoken about the author. We are going into the plot. The storyline of Breath, Eyes, Memory moves between Haiti and New York. Now, despite the poverty, the life that the main character, Sophie Keiko, had in the small village of Croix des Rosettes in Haiti, it's a happy one. In spite of their poverty, she was happy because in truth and reality, students, poverty does not mean that you are unhappy. And we see as much for Sophie. Sophie was not really unhappy. She was not unhappy, in fact, even though she was living the abject poverty of Haiti at the time. She had developed a bond with her aunt, Attie, and this was strong and loving. Of course, when a child grows with an adult, whether it's a parent or not, and develops certain kinds of bonds, the child will become angry and frightened when she knows she has to leave the comfort of her life before and go to live with somebody else who she doesn't know. In this case, Sophie is forced to move to her mother Martine in New York. Now, mind you, Attie had been taking care of Sophie forever, for as long as she could remember. And so she had begun to see her Aunt Attie as her mother. In fact, yes, in many ways, because this was her primary caregiver at the time, and so she had become even more connected. Now you can just imagine how frustrated and how angry Sophie would become now that she had to move from what she knows, her comfort zone, and get out there into another world with her real mother who she does not know. Both Attie and Sophie say farewells, affectionate farewells, and we see that Sophie goes to the airport. On their way, there is a political disturbance in the streets. Mention of the feared Tonto Macoute alerts the reader to the fact that leaving Haiti, is a most fortunate move for the girl. But in fact, she doesn't see this because at that age, she doesn't really understand the political problems that Haiti was having during that time. Nevertheless, Sophie, she dreads parting from her beloved Tanti Attie and the only life that she really knows. Now she gets to New York. She is disappointed by the dilapidated slum buildings. For her, right here, there is this dirtiness and the evidence of poverty that even though it had existed in Haiti, it had not truly affected her. So when she comes to New York, which was supposed to be the land of opportunity and good fortune, she was a little bit distressed by the old buildings, the dirty buildings, the slum, and she hadn't expected such poverty and neglect in a city so highly regarded. She also cannot relate to her mother, which is understandable, people. She doesn't know the mother. She has never lived with her mother, and so it is hard for her to relate to her mother at this point. And so she feels as if she is being pushed out by the oversized doll that her mother still plays with. That would ring warning bells, don't they? I mean, her mother is still playing with a doll, but let's go on. Her mother evidently wants her to be like a doll, a submissive plaything. It seems that Martine cannot relate to the real Sophie either, because it goes both ways. None of them grew up with each other, to an extent. Sophie's mother had gotten older, and so of course she had grown. And Sophie had gotten older as well, so she had grown. But none of them had ever been in contact with each other for an extended period of time, if any at all, and so it was difficult on both sides. Sophie's sense that something is wrong with her mother is confirmed when she realizes that her mother Martine suffers. She has terrible challenges with nightmares. In small doses, Sophie also learns the terrible secrets that haunt her mother. There is the testing that is done to girls when they reach a certain age in this culture, and then there was the rape. Sophie discovers that she herself is a product of that brutal rape. She is the child of her mother who had been raped. When her mother sees her then, it becomes a perpetual reminder to her of an utterly nightmarish experience. Time passes, yes, and Sophie learns English and becomes friendly with Joseph, an African-American musician who lives nearby. Martine finds this out, and of course she is careful now, and so she begins to carry out her weekly testing. Now, as we go further along in the videos on Brave Eyes Memory, I will explain to you what exactly the process of testing is and how traumatizing it must have been for Sophie. Now, this testing was carried out really to see that Sophie was still a virgin, because she had been going around Joseph for the longest while, and Joseph, of course, is older. Sophie is so traumatized by this invasion of her person that she takes a pestle, forces it into herself, and of course, she deliberately loses her virginity here. When Sophie fails the test, when Sophie fails Martine's test afterwards, Martine drives her out of the house and she goes to live with Joseph. Together, Joseph and Sophie develop a relationship, and they have a sexual relationship, of course, people, and they have a child who is called Brigitte. However, similar to her mother, Sophie is now haunted by the period of testing, and it causes Sophie to become sexually frigid. Now, Joseph is incredibly gentle and patient, and still, Sophie can only cope with his caresses by doubling and removing herself. Desperately in need of help, Sophie goes home to Haiti, to the circle of women who have always been there for her as her support team. There, among the mothers of her children, Sophie finds a measure of healing. Martine comes home and joins her at her grandmother Ife's house, and together they both attempt to deal with the hurt that had been inflicted on them by the past. And in doing so, they had hoped to reconciliate and to forgive each other. Sophie and little Brigitte now returns to New York along with Martine. Now, despite the optimism that came from the visit to Haiti, the challenges are still there. There are no challenges. The challenges have not been passed, really. Aside from what was transpiring between mother and daughter and the process of healing, Martine now finds out that she is pregnant by her boyfriend. No, Sophie is a grown woman. Martine is an even more grown woman, and Martine is pregnant. Mark is the boyfriend. He has no joy, and neither does Martine. She has had a history of breast cancer, and of course she is afraid that it will repeat itself. Even worse, there are challenges from her mental terrors, the nightmares she has. She always imagines hearing the child inside her speaking in the tone of voice of the man who raped her years before and gave her Sophie. Now, all of this is too much for Martine. The implication is that she commits suicide. Mark finds her on the bathroom floor in a pool of blood. She has stabbed herself in her belly 17 times. It is Mark who follows Sophie as she takes Martine's body back to Haiti for burial. Now, while they are at the graveside, Grandma Ife offers these words of wisdom to Sophie. She says the daughter is never fully a woman until her mother has passed on before her. Now, in saying this, she is suggesting that Sophie is now free, liberated. But is Sophie really free? Sophie now tells herself that her daughter will never ever suffer the way that she did, and that in many ways she will understand that her daughter's body is her own. Now, thank you for staying with me for part 1. I am making these a little bit shorter because it will be easier for you to follow. But guess what? The more I upload, the more I will attach them to the end of each video so that it makes it easier for you to click. Also, if you've stayed with me, please know that I will put Breath, Eyes, Memory in a simple playlist so that it is okay for you to just go ahead and run the playlist on Breath, Eyes, Memory without having to search too much for the information that you are going to need. If you are new to my channel, once more, thank you for joining me. Please hit the red button with the bells on. That's a subscribe button right down below. Yes, hit that button, please, so that you will always be aware of new upcoming notifications regarding the pieces for the CSEC examinations. If you are returning to the channel, thank you for staying by. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for standing here throughout all this time. And I do hope that you will learn much, much more as we move along.